Welcome or welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead, where on my channel I focus on food, growing it, preparing it, and preserving it. Today is Friday, so we are doing another freeze-dry Friday video, and I am going to be freeze-drying sliced ham steaks. So I've mentioned in one of my recent videos that we don't do a lot of ham here, and one year I ordered them sliced. I think it was last year, and every other year I've ordered them as hams, and I think I have 4 or 5 large hams in my freezer that I really need to get processed and get through. I have practiced doing ham once, and I made maybe a pint amount just to see if I would use it, if I liked it. And it turns out I did. I liked it and I used it. It is awesome to put into a breakfast skillet with some eggs. It rehydrates super easy. It's easy just to incorporate some protein that way, and the flavor is pretty good. On the other hand, I tried one of these pork steaks and I absolutely did not like it. It's too thick. I didn't like the texture of it. I'm not gonna eat these. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these onto some freeze dryer trays. This is just shy of 7 pounds, but they do have a bone in the middle, and they do have a bunch of fat around, the edges in some spots. So I'm gonna have to get that cut off because bone doesn't freeze dry and fat doesn't freeze dry well. It'll shorten the storage life of your product. So I'm gonna trim off as much as I can and just get this diced up onto some freeze dryer trays. Hopefully this will be a full run. I'd like to get these done because I have a few hams that I need to cut down and get through the freeze dryer. In any case, let's get to chopping and stacking on some freeze dryer trays. Now, there is no science behind this. I'm just gonna open these bags, take out the ham steaks, and chop off what I don't want to put onto the freeze dryer. I am using a cutting board that's easy for me to get into the sink and wash versus the one I have underneath here, which is actually a piece of a countertop that was left over when I redid the basement kitchen. So you can see here that there is a big piece of fat here. There is fat along the outer edge. So I'm gonna start there, and we're just gonna cut that off. And then I'm going to go for this middle section of fat here. So I'm just going to cut along the edges. And here comes the dogs circling my feet. They can smell this, and they certainly want some. So this is a discard. This is a discard. This is a discard. And then we just need to get this bone out. So I'm just gonna cut around the bone, and I'm not even gonna be super careful about it because this is all gonna get diced up. Now, I could save these, and I probably will, and put them in my freezer because I can add them to, if I'm gonna do like a baked beans and ham or something, I can get some pretty good flavor off of that. So I'm just gonna set those aside. This is about the size that I'm looking for, so just small pieces, and I'm just gonna do sticks and then dices in the direction that's gonna require the least amount of work. And there's actually a bone there, so I gotta get that one out. And there's some extra fat in here as well, and I can probably just pull that off. Now, can you freeze dry food with fat? Yes, you can. Is it going to shorten the shelf life of your food? Probably. By a lot? I don't know. I would guess by a few years at least. So if you can count on freeze-dried food being good if properly dried and stored for 20, 25, or 30 years, I'm guessing you can get at least half of that with food that has fat on it, but that will also depend on how much fat. I'm assuming. I am not a freeze-drying fat expert, but because this is something I wouldn't eat like this anyway, I am okay experimenting, taking that risk. And this just gives me more options. And we did go through the ham that I have already done, so I know we will get through this. Will it be this year? Probably not. But that's okay. And if at some point along the way it is no longer edible because it's gone rancid, that's what happens when you when fat gets old, it goes rancid, then we'll just throw it away, which I would have done probably anyway because this is not something that I choose to eat in this form. So all of this dicing is going to take a minute at least, more like an hour. So I will just whip this up. I'm just going to be careful going through all the pieces and, just cutting off the bulk of the fat. Get that edge cleaned off. So with a little bit of prep work up front, I can have, with all the hams that I have in the freezer, I probably have about 10 years worth of freeze-dried ham dices once I'm through with them, that I'm sure we will be happy at some point to have. These will be great in casseroles or in, we really liked them in breakfast skillets or breakfast burritos once it was rehydrated. This would be great to take camping or backpacking. When it comes out of the freeze dryer, it is going to be super light and weigh nothing, so easy to travel with, but a nice protein option anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get through the rest of these steaks and I'll show you what that looks like when they are on the freeze dryer tray. All right, so here's how we made out. I can leave it like this, which is a pretty thin spread. The tray is right underneath. I'm used to really loading my trays. One tray was too much, so I think what I'm going to do is spread this across 2 trays. So I'll do half of this one on each. And then I went ahead and pulled out another ham. So I'll get this ham into the freezer while I defrost the other ham enough to chop it down. And then I can get 2 trays more ham to make one full freeze dryer run in nothing but smoked ham. So this yielded about almost 5 pounds of ham. I've got the pieces that I cut off in here, so I'm going to go ahead and freeze those. And here is my next ham that I will chop down, and this is smoked ham, 6.035 pounds. So as soon as I can get into that, I'll get that cut down just like this. Spread that across 2 of these trays. That will be a full freeze dryer run. I'll bring you back at that point and we'll get these in. We'll see how long they take and I'll show you how easy it is to rehydrate ham and have it in a simple, quick, easy breakfast, lunch, or even dinner. We got 4 full trays here of the diced ham. And I've got the freeze dryer already started, so it's going through its 15-minute cool down. So trays are not overly filled, but I am still pleased with how much came out of this. And I will likely end up doing the rest of my hams that are in the freezer that way. I've really got to get my freezers cleaned out so I can make my next annual order. It is, December, and usually, well, historically, I've always picked up in November, but I haven't even placed my order yet. Last year, I didn't pick up until January because I think I placed my order about this time, but we also ordered more. So last year was the first year that I ordered a whole hog, and we still have a lot in there, but I'm happy to freeze dry a lot of it because that's just food for my future at today's prices, and especially when you buy it in bulk from a farmer, you're getting high quality food at a really low price. I can't remember exactly what the pork came out to be, but I think it was somewhere around $3 a pound for anything and everything, and it was a lot. So we're getting this preserved for long term, but of course we will use some of it in the short term storage glass jars for intermediate use. But we can go ahead and get these over to the freeze dryer and get them processed. Freeze dryer is ready to go. It's actually been going for about 30 minutes. I just had a few things to do before we got started on this, so I'm gonna go ahead and get everything loaded in. So here is tray 1 of the smoked diced ham. Tray 2. Tray 3. So not super full. And tray 4. And just following the directions on my digital display, we just need to close the drain valve. And then press continue. Now this is going to go into the freezing cycle. This is pre-frozen, so that won't take too long. And then it'll do its thing. So this will probably be done in around 30-ish hours, somewhere between 30 and 40. I'll bring you back when it says we're done and we'll test for dryness. All right, timer's just about ready to go off. I was actually just about ready to head upstairs to get ready for bed, and I thought, oh, better check the freeze dryer, and it's just about done. So it's got 20 seconds left. I'm gonna go ahead and push the down arrow to zero out the time, and that allows me to either defrost, end without defrosting, or add more dry time if these aren't done yet. So I need to check them. And to open this, because it's a vacuum seal in here, I have to open the drain valve to release the pressure. Oh, and the time on here is 33 hours, 7 minutes, 21 seconds. And that's with the extra 15 hours of dry time. And these feel like styrofoam, so I think that these are done, but we'll take them into the kitchen just to verify. I know the lighting in here right now is really bad. It's usually very bright in here, but it is nighttime, so I just have track lights in here, because during the day, there's 9 skylights and 11 windows, 9 of which are floor to ceiling. So I don't really need lights in here during the day. But these are looking good to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and call them done. They feel like styrofoam. I would be utterly amazed and surprised if these were not done. So let's take them into the kitchen and we'll get them packaged up. And my plan for these is glass. I do plan on using these throughout the next 12 months. If they don't all fit into this 1-gallon glass jar, I do have a couple of pint-size mylar bags here that I will use if they don't fit. But I do want to keep these out because ham has fat that's in it. I couldn't get all of the fat off, and so I want to keep an eye on it. I want to make sure it's not going to go rancid. I kind of want to see how long it will last. And so I will use it throughout the year, and if I notice any change in smell or in flavor, then, you know, note to self, and I'll mark at what point that happened, and so I'll get a better idea of how long freeze-dried ham would last. And again, this is smoked freeze-dried ham, and I've shown how to rehydrate this before. I used it in one of my freeze-dry Friday videos where I reconstituted something. I think it was a greens video maybe. So I'm not gonna do that tonight, but I'll tell you that it's easy because this is actually rehydration, not reconstitution of food. So we're not looking for a certain consistency like we would with sauce, soup, mashed potatoes, something like that, where if you put in too much water, you're just gonna, have a watery mess. This is just a rehydration. The cells of this meat have not been damaged at all during the sublimation process. That's the beauty of freeze drying. the cell walls do not collapse. So they're kind of there just waiting to be filled back up, and they're only going to allow as much liquid back into them as was lost during that sublimation freeze drying process. So I showed rehydrating diced ham where I just put it in a little cup or a little bowl, and then I just covered them with water and I let them sit there for a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And they came out great. Now they were wet because, you know, I had soaked them in water, but I just wiped them kind of with a paper towel, you know, just kind of squeezed a little bit to get the excess moisture off. They recooked beautifully, super easy to do. I don't put a whole lot of fuss into my rehydration. I do on the reconstitution, or I should say I'm just really careful when I'm reconstituting something because I don't want to ruin it by getting it overly soupy or diluted if, you know, there's a consistency that matters there. But with just plain vegetables or meat or fruit, it's just, they're only going to absorb as much water as they need. So I don't make a big fuss about it. I don't weigh the before and weigh the after. I did when I first got my freeze dryer, but you know what I found out is even if you weigh perfectly, you're not guaranteed that the exact amount of moisture that your scale is telling you it lost is true. I have found that depending on how you put your trays on the scale, it can change the gram weight. It just wasn't scientific, so why bother? I just eyeball it and go with my gut, and you learn that way. You learn what works and what doesn't work. I'm not knocking anybody who does it that way. More power to you. I just haven't found that the result doing it that way is any better than just kind of using a little bit of common sense, meaning it needs to rehydrate, so you add water. If it fully rehydrated, if it's soft, if it looks like it's supposed to, you've added enough water. And if it doesn't, if it's still, you know, hard, crunchy, or styrofoamy, add more water. So to me, it's not that difficult, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. So I don't do it that way. So I have 1 gallon of diced, smoked, freeze-dried ham that I am not going to put an oxygen absorber in because I don't typically do that when I store things for up to 12-month use in glass. I've never had anything fail in a glass jar. And so that leaves me with almost a tray, because this is a kind of shallow tray, for these mylar bags. Now I'm gonna, you know, put these somewhere where I'm gonna remember I have them because they're gonna be part of this test group. And hopefully I won't need more than 2 bags, but if I do, I'll grab one. And then I have the appropriate cc's here for the pint size bags. I believe they're 100 cc. And right on here that this is diced smoked ham. Freeze dried, or FD, because I also dehydrate. And this is 12 of 24. This year went by really fast. I remember, do you remember when you were a little kid and it would be like 3 months to Christmas and that just felt like forever? And then when you got about a month out, maybe you had one of those calendars, what are they called? Nativity calendar, is that right? Where you have something to open and there's just a little treat or something to tide you over, just to satisfy a little bit of that excitement while you waited for Christmas. And it took still forever for Christmas to come. And now, one minute it's January and the next it's December. It's crazy. All right, and I am just going to use my hands to get these in here because they're too small to slide the tray into, and the scooper that I normally use is in the dishwasher. So I'm just gonna try to get half of a tray in each bag. And so this ham would be perfect if I wanted to do, say, a make-ahead meal with, and maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that on my freeze-dry video. make ahead with using freeze-dried eggs and freeze-dried ham and freeze-dried peppers and freeze-dried onion. All right, jumping in here, I changed my mind. We are gonna whip up a breakfast. So I have some freeze-dried whole eggs, freeze-dried spinach, freeze-dried smoked ham, some freeze-dried onions, and some freeze-dried sweet peppers. So I'm gonna make an egg medley. So we're gonna start with the freeze-dried whole eggs. And I'm gonna do 2 eggs, which is 4 tablespoons of whole egg powder. And I like to do 3 tablespoons per egg of water. I know that there is a typical published 50-50, but I find it doesn't get quite as well hydrated or reconstituted that way. So I'm gonna do 6 tablespoons of water. And this is warm water. It's not hot because I don't want to cook the raw eggs, but because the yolk has fat in it, that's going to help prevent it from being grainy, because fat needs just a little bit of warmth to reconstitute. So we're just going to whip those up and let them sit for just a minute while we get the other stuff rehydrating as well. And I've already got water in my measuring cup here, so I'm just gonna put this stuff in there. None of it has to be precise, it just needs water. That sounded vacuum sealed, even though I don't have anything in there to vacuum seal it. So I'm just gonna drop in a little bit of ham. A little bit of diced white onion. Some freeze-dried diced sweet peppers. And some freeze-dried spinach. Easy as can be breakfast. Just gonna mix that together, and then we're just gonna let this sit for a few minutes. I'll get the pan warmed up. We'll get these strained, and then we'll get to cooking. So I'm gonna let these sit for 5 minutes. The eggs are looking good. And the ham and veg are looking good as well. So just 5 minutes and then we'll cook. We are almost at time here, and I did mix this through, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and it is as smooth as can be. It is not grainy or lumpy. This is absolutely perfect. Now, when I make, there's our 5-minute timer. When I make eggs, I typically add water when I beat the eggs. So this does not have enough liquid in it just yet. However, these vegetables and the ham are gonna be bringing a lot of water. So I don't think I'm gonna add any extra, but of course I do have a ton of water in here if I wanna pour some extra in. But I'm gonna start by putting the veg into my skillet, which I've had warming up for about a minute on a medium-high heat. All right, I think I am gonna add more water to the eggs because I think that that's not gonna lend very well to the eggs. It's just gonna kind of sizzle off. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of that in here, about as much as I would if I was making 2 eggs, and get that blended in. Adding in a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. The dog's got new squeaky toys for Christmas. They haven't killed them all yet, so that's what you hear in the background if you can hear it. All right. This is ready to go. And we'll just get that mixed through. So this cooked up in about a minute, so 6 minutes, and you can have an amazing breakfast with freeze-dried food, including freeze-dried ham. Let's get this plated up. All right, I've got a bowl and a breakfast. This looks amazing and it smells incredible. Let's give it a try. Doesn't it look great? Lots of colors in here, so many good nutrients in here, and that little pop of smoked ham flavor in a size that I can appreciate. Little dices of ham. Let's get some other stuff in there as well. It is incredibly flavorful. It's delicious. I've got a freeze-dried pepper here with a little ham and some spinach. Yeah, that's amazing. Couldn't be easier. We will be enjoying this all year for sure. All right, now back to the video. We will enjoy this, especially it'll be nice when I am not in town and not here to cook. It'll be an easy option for my family to have some protein while I'm gone, that they don't have to do a whole lot of work to get into their bellies. Freeze-dried food is wonderful that way. So I'll keep you posted if anything, seems to be going bad with the ham. But the one I did before, I think I've used it all up. I only did like a quart amount, and I think I used that up within 6 months. I used it kind of sparingly because I wanted to test the longevity of it. It was perfectly fine after 6 months. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be fine at least for a handful of years, but we'll see. I did not have to use the silicone liners on here. Nothing stuck to the pan. As you saw, it was super easy to get off. These are about even inside the bag, so I'm going to leave that as is. Pop in an oxygen absorber. Your oxygen absorbers are still good as long as they're soft and pliable and they're not crunchy, crackly, or hard, which these are nice and soft and pliable. And then I just zipper the bag closed almost all the way and press out as much air as I can, and that's my method until I get one of those, I think it's Avid Armor, that just sucks it all out for you, gets every little bit of air out. Those look like they're a lot of fun. They're also a whole lot of money, so this works for me just fine for now. And if you're new to freeze drying, this zipper is not sufficient for long-term storage. It is not guaranteed airtight. Anything can happen to it, so you definitely want to do a heat seal on here. These impulse sealers are super easy to use. On my model, which came with my Harvest Right freeze dryer, I have the medium Harvest Right freeze dryer, There is a dial, so I set the dial to the middle of the bag, and then I just watch the light. If it's on, it's sealing. Once it's sealed according to the dial, that's how much time it needs, it's done. There are tear notches on these bags. I heat seal, these just resealed. I heat seal above those tear notches so that when I tear the heat seal off to open the bag, I still have the zipper and I still have plenty of room above the zipper because I will heat seal way up here and the zipper is down here. So we've got like a good 1.5 inches here. So when I tear that heat seal off, there's still space for me to reheat seal it and zipper it if I don't use all the contents that are in here. So to do that, I just make sure that my tear notches are towards me as I lay the edge of the bag in the center of the heat strip here. As soon as the light goes off, and now we have a heat seal right along the upper edge of our bag. Do that one more time and that's it. Freeze drying is a whole lot of fun, and it is a super helpful way to stock your pantry, prepare for emergency. I've said it before, the way I freeze dry, things that go into mylar are like my savings account. This is for my future. In case of an emergency or when I retire, maybe, who knows what's gonna happen in the next 20 years. I may not be able to source this in 20 years. I may not be able to afford this in 20 years. So when I freeze dry, I like to do glass as my checking account or what I draw from day to day just to get by, and then some in mylar for my savings account. And sometimes I'll do more in mylar than in glass. It just depends on what it is and how much I may or may not have available currently in glass or currently in my totes where I store my freeze-dried product, which I've shown on my 2024 pantry tour video. So I think freeze drying is wonderful if you have one or if you are thinking about getting one. I do have a freeze dry Friday playlist where I try to show a lot of the stuff I freeze dry. I only post on there once a week, so I don't show everything. But if you have a request, please let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Freeze Dry Friday, Smoked Ham edition. My name is Kelly, you're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.